in, everybody. What's going on? Welcome to Hoops 360. On today's edition of the show, we're going to discuss our early takeaways from the tip-off of women's college basketball season, plus Ava Wallace from the Washington Post stops by. So we'll take a deep dive with her to look into which college players we see potentially thriving at the next level in the W, specifically at the Washington Mystics. Plus, as always, we will keep you updated with the latest on the WNBA CBA. And with Ava, we'll break down the similarities between the WNBA CBA, the NBA CBA, and some other CBAs across professional sports leagues. Before we get into all of that, though, we want to get you, our listeners, our fans, our people, our ride or dies, all in on the show. So to keep you involved in our conversation, please send any questions, comments, concerns, tidbits that you have our way so we can discuss it on the podcast. Send those to hoops360@yahoosports.com. And we will try to get to all of your questions. We'll try and answer everything that you have. We'll take a deep dive into things that are important to you. So don't be shy. Send us an email. All right, let's get into it. She's Cassandra Negley. I am Caroline Fenton, and the women's college hoops season is here. We had tip-off on Monday night. The action continued on Tuesday night as well. And let's start with the number one team in all the land. The reigning national champions, the UConn Huskies, take down number 20 Louisville 77-76. Sarah Strong, the sophomore coming off of a massive Final Four performance last season, led the way. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Did I get everything? My goodness, Sarah, save some for the rest of us. We also had Baylor and Duke, the number 16 and 7 teams respectively. And look, Baylor took down a top 10 Duke team in Paris. We'll discuss what may have gone wrong for the Blue Devils, and should Duke fans be concerned? We'll do that in just a sec. But we also rounded out some ranked-on-ranked matchups on Tuesday night. Tennessee, number 8 team, took down NC State, the number 9 team. NC State taking down Tennessee 80-77. There were a ton of lead changes. Both teams went on runs at times, but ultimately the Wolfpack remained victorious. So, Cass, looking at those 3 games and the entire slate that we've had so far early in the season, some takeaways. Let's hear it.
My top takeaway over the past 2 days is a shout out to UConn, Louisville, Tennessee, NC State, Duke, and Baylor for playing those to start this season. I mean, that's not easy to do, to start your season with a top 25 competition or that level competition, even if they're not ranked. I thought they, for the most part, were fun games. They had people engaged. They were the highlights of the day. And they gave us something, I think, real to talk about when we're talking about these teams and what they can do this season, because it's great to kind of ramp up to your season and play some of these other teams. But Texas dropping 123 or whatever they did on a nobody, like, not going to tell us a whole lot about what the Longhorns are going to look like long term.
I'm so with you. I love these early season non-conference games because it actually gives us a peek behind the curtain of exactly what we're going to see. You know, Michigan beating up on Canisius is great and all. Are you impressed that I pronounced that?
Sorry, I am impressed, actually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Shout out to Ainsley Mann, my roommate from college, from Buffalo. But yeah, it's like, it's great if you can beat up on bad teams. And I do understand that these teams with tournament and national championship expectations and hopes need some time to figure some things out as well. But I look at Duke, and I have to give Duke so much credit for this non-conference schedule that they're playing. Not only did they open the season with Baylor, they also take on South Carolina and LSU in the non-con. And, oh yeah, by the way, they have the entirety of an ACC schedule, of a grind of a schedule upcoming once we get into conference play. One of my biggest takeaways, who can beat UConn? Like, is it so easy to say today on November 5th that UConn's going to repeat? Because I talked today on Yahoo Sports Daily about my pick to win a national championship. And I really thought about it. And I just kept coming back to UConn. And I think last night was the perfect example of exactly why I think that. It's Sarah Strong, who is coming back and building upon what she did late in the season last year. It's Azzi Fudd, who had 20 points. It's what they can do off the bench. And even in a day where Laura Ziegler had, 16 points and 18 rebounds, UConn's still able to find a dominant victory over a very good top 25 Louisville team. So this UConn team, they are so sound, they are so deep, they're so stacked, and they are led by two superstars in Azzi Fudd and Sarah Strong. Cass, I know it's so early, but back-to-back feels like it's absolutely in the cards for this Huskies team.
Very much the front runner. I was taken by KK Arnold in that one. Paige Beckers was interviewed deeper into the game, and she talked about how this is KK Arnold's team now. She sat and she learned from Nika Mule. She learned from Paige Beckers. She learned from Caitlin Chen, and now she's in charge of running the offense. I was impressed with her aggression. She kept their pace up, popped the ball around. Sarah Strong and Azzi Fudd are going to be the engine that churns UConn, but KK Arnold is just as important, and they also need scoring from other places, and that's her. They have a versatility that they haven't had before. The last three quarters of the game, I think they maybe let their foot off the gas a little bit. Louisville did make it a 10-point game. Sarah Strong hit 2 buckets to change it. But I like that Gino Auriemma talked after the game about, listen, we're the number one team in the country. We're the reigning champions. I'm not going to come in every day after, a win and point out the negatives or be really hard on our team. I thought that was a great way to go because they did come out of the gates hot. They gave themselves the lead they needed. They notched an impressive win and are off to the races. And I think especially for UConn, to talk about getting back to the championship game, the thing is always they have to play a good non-conference slate and find ways to win these games so that they have a good seed, because the Big East is not what it was even 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. The razzle-dazzle style points matter, even when those games are being played on November 4th. And that's what UConn had last night. That point about, look, we're the number one team in the country, we're the reigning national champions. That means that UConn is getting everyone's best shot. Every team on UConn's schedule has that game scheduled in big fat red Sharpie and saying, we're going to give them everything that we have. And so if UConn can still do that in the form of a 13-point win, and probably could have been even more, should have been even more, I think is a statement by this team. I know I'm giving them all of their praise. The 3-point shooting does have to improve if UConn is going to consistently string wins together, and especially flashy wins together. UConn shot only 15% from beyond the arc, only 4 of 26 last night. So that does need to improve. But again, I was talking about a dominant win over a good team. So that is just something that I'll be keeping in mind moving forward. But maybe what was another one of your takeaways from the entire slate or any of these ranked on ranked matchups over the last couple of days?
I thought the best game that unfortunately I did not get to sit down and just watch, I was kind of in and out of the house, Tennessee and NC State. That was fun. If you watch that from the beginning, they couldn't get a stoppage in play for Tennessee to get their subs in. And you could see both sides were very, very tired by that pace. But it came down to the wire, fun game. I think the thing for Tennessee, first of all, as Kim Caldwell said, and Kara Lawson, to your point earlier about Duke, you schedule these games and are okay with taking losses because you want to play a March-style game in November and take a loss versus playing a March-style game in March and taking the loss and your season is over. I think for Tennessee, though, as they continue to learn each other, figure this out, they have new pieces. They were rushed at times, and I think they had a little bit of trouble with NC State's press when they did press. And they would grab a turnover, a steal, whatever, and then turn it right back over. So I'd like to see them improve in valuing the ball in that. And I think those closer games could go better their way.
They need to play cleaner all the way around. It's taking care of the basketball. And also, Tennessee had 23 fouls in this game. When you give North Carolina, when you give NC State 21 opportunities from the line, it's not very conducive for winning games, especially when you're talking about these top 10 matchups. You don't want to give your opponent any freebies. That was the difference in the game. What was the final score on this one? 80-77, a 3-point game, and 15 of NC State's 80 points came from free throw shots. So Tennessee just has to clean things up. Their style of play, I think it's incredibly physical, it's incredibly fast, and they have so many substitutions, so they have fresh legs underneath them. It can be more conducive to more fouls because they're playing so physically, but you're going to absolutely positively have to clean that up. I think Tennessee's going to be fine. I'm not waving the white flag or pressing the panic button on any of these teams in a win or a loss. Tennessee is going to be just fine. And if I know Kim Caldwell well enough, I feel like I know that these things that reared the ugly heads in this loss, they're going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, her direct quote was, "We scheduled this game to see where we were. We wanted to see where we were early, so we had time to fix it." I think that's exactly what we got out of it. She then went on to say, to your point, that's a very good basketball team. Team's going to be playing deep into March, and we want to be too. If we buckle down and fix the things we need to, there are some really eye-opening things that we need to get under control. Then we'll get 15 points better from this loss. And 15 points better when you're talking about playing teams like NC State, which are clearly top of the top, probably will win you some games. It's fine. I also am not waving a white flag. Like, all these teams are fine. It's fine, everybody.
You're going to be fine. It's November. It's going to be fine.
It's fine.
Everybody take a breather. Duke is also going to be fine in a low-scoring 58-52 slog it out kind of game. And Duke wants to play defensively. It's Duke and Texas both, like, they want to win these games like a baseball score. But Baylor out-rebounded Duke, and that's really the biggest margin of difference in that game. It's a 6-point game. Huge win for Baylor. When we're talking about this game come tournament time and come Selection Sunday, like, this is going to be, I have to predict, a massive bullet point for Baylor's resume. But again, I'm not overly concerned about Duke. Toby Fournier looks like she's, going to come back and bounce back from last season in her ACC Freshman of the Year campaign. Duke is going to be just fine. And again, if I know Kara Lawson, they're gonna clean up some of those mistakes that they had on Monday night in Paris.
They were also without a few players. Emily Skinner, their top recruit, did not play. I think they had another player not playing. And to Kara Lawson's point, she's talked about this. Do you want to lose games? No. But also, does your record really matter if you're lifting a national championship trophy? Not really. You're only remembering the trophy. In terms of this game, my biggest takeaway was Talia Scott certainly won the day, transfer of the day. A big part of that was because she was playing top 25 competition in Duke, but the go-to scorer that the Bears really needed, they're a long team, versatile, she's going to be huge for them. I was impressed with her, and she's coming off an injury too, so impressive start for Baylor.
Yeah, 24 points. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal from Talia Scott. Big night from her. So overall, we have some teams that look as advertised, even in a win or a loss. And I love to see these matchups on the men's and women's side. These non-conference Power 4 or, top 25 matchups are an absolute blast to watch. All right, coming up next, we are so excited here on Hoops 360 to welcome in a very special guest. Washington Post sports reporter Ava Wallace joins us here on the program. Now, Ava, you do a little bit of everything on the hardwood. Do a little bit of NBA, do a little bit of W, do a little bit of college, and you cover the Mystics, of course, being in the Washington area. And the Mystics had 2 of the most exciting rookies in the WNBA this past season, in Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron, 2 players that Cass and I were talking about at midpoint in the season about getting Rookie of the Year nods at that point. So just looking at what those 2 have added and how they've been able to translate their college game to the W game, what have you noticed from those 2 and how this team continues to build?
I have to start, first of all, with off-court stuff, which I know that was not the question. I'm sorry. But the first Mystics game, the first Mystics game I went to this year was so much fun. They were playing the Liberty, so they were hanging in till the second quarter-ish maybe. But I covered the Mystics when they won their league title in 2019. And when I tell you I had not felt the energy that I felt back during that championship season since this season, and it was because of those 2 rookies, and particularly Kiki. This was when Kiki was doing really well. She's so charismatic. The team told me, they were like, we cannot keep her jersey in the merch store. Everybody fell in love with her. Sonia hadn't quite kind of burst out as much as she did later in the season, but it was really cool to see how electrified the Mystics were. It was a Liberty game, so there was a lot of buzz and everything, but people fell in love with these rookies immediately, and they really lived up to it on court. I was surprised by the physicality and the poise, of course, but which is kind of normally what you see from players who stick around as long as they did and had as much big game experience. But they were going up against Breanna Stewart. Jonquel Jones got injured in that game, and it was because it was a really physical game. And it was really, really impressive to see just how sure of themselves they were, I would say. The Mystics were not overly concerned with game plan. they're kind of in a developmental era. But just bringing the ball up the court and making decisions, I was so impressed by everything I saw from them.
Ava, I'm always taken now compared to like those 2019 years when I go into team stores. There is so much merch, like
yes.
The Fever. I live in New York State, so I see like all the Liberty merch. Since you mentioned like they couldn't keep Kiki's jersey in the store, like what have you noticed from them in that aspect to meet all of this demand for their rookies?
Yeah, they couldn't. During the season, they were literally like, there was a wait list for her jersy. And
That's
certainly
incredible.
Sonia has, I know, it was crazy. I had never heard of that, even like when Elena Deladon was playing for the team. But I think they've kind of done a lot from the outside in terms of they're having their players on podcasts. They're making sure that they're at all of the team events as rookies, which is something that's really important. And just in terms of like getting them in front of the community, but also building their brands. And I know the Mystics are super invested from that kind of perspective too. Jamila Weidman is their GM who came from the NBA where she was the director of player development. She knows all of that stuff. So they're like very set in terms of getting out in front of the media, getting out in front of fans. But it was really cool just to see them kind of get all that love back too. It was awesome.
I do want to stick on that for a second because I do think there is a lot, the trend in the W is NBA influence, whether it's coaches that have spent time in the NBA or front office members who have spent time in the NBA or ownership groups like the Washington Mystics. The Wizards and Mystics fall under the same umbrella. So what kind of NBA mentality or NBA tips and tricks have you seen the Washington Mystics adopt and maybe, want to adopt in the near future to continue to build the buzz of this young team?
This is where I have to give a lot of props to the team owner, franchise owner, Ted Leonsis, who has kind of always been one of those guys who is really invested in the WNBA team. I mean, even back in 2019, they were kind of one of the early adopters back when the trend was like, okay, we need to have teams have their own stadium and like a little bit of a smaller atmosphere so you get that home court advantage. The Mystics play out in a far away from Capital One Arena. They'll do the camp games. They'll go into the big arena when Caitlin Clark comes to town, basically, or Angel Reese is in town. They go to Baltimore. But they were kind of always on the front line of that stuff, of having their own in-house medical personnel in the arena so you can eat, you can get your treatment, you can get everything in-house way before. I think that was like pretty commonplace for teams now, which, you see teams like the Mercury just like going on these huge new state-of-the-art stadiums. They've been like that for a while. And I think when Weidman came in, it was interesting because I always had the question of like, okay, you haven't like constructed a roster before, and now here you are drafting for the Mystics. But she does have the very professional top level thinking about the roster, but also thinking about the whole picture of tending to the athlete. I think that's where the Mystics have always been pretty good, honestly. And they're just they call it a rebuilding phase. So I'm interested to see how the on-court product catches up to all of the off-court stuff that they are doing really well.
When it comes to that small arena, you're totally right. At the time, there were teams downsizing, right? Meeting kind of fans where they were, creating a fun environment in terms of just it being loud and not empty. But we're seeing boosting attendance and people want to attend games. And certainly that's maybe not great for the Mystics. How do you see that playing out in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. There was kind of some controversy in the past couple of years where it was maybe going to be the case where the Wizards were going to build a new arena. Oh no, they're staying in downtown DC, and the Mystics are kind of left out in Southeast DC. It's a less developed area of the city. So there is a lot of talk about like making sure the Mystics are not, one, carrying the burden of the franchise of saying like, no, we're connected to the part of the city that's underdeveloped, that has a lot of more of the city's Black population living in it. Like, we don't want to just shove you over there and say, that's your responsibility to keep us connected there. They do an okay job kind of balancing, hey, here's when we have a really big game, we'll let you absolutely sell out Capital One Arena. And those atmospheres are crazy and do make you think like, man, could this team really sell out? I can't remember what the capacity for Cap One is.
It's about
but
20.
These huge, about 20. It's these huge games. The answer, I mean, having covered that team at both places, I think the atmosphere in the smaller arena is better. It does benefit the team, but you want to have that flexibility. So it's a matter of, I think, prioritizing the Mystics over something like a concert series or like the things that always keeps the WNBA team out of the big arenas during the summer. I think they could do a better job of that, but you could also just invest in the facility that you have right now and make sure that you have extra seats when you have a big game, or make sure you have, you're putting on events outside of the arena. Like they do a good job of kicking off with a block party every year, something like that. So I think there's a way to work with what they have. But yeah, I'm on the same track of you of like, let's make sure the Mystics aren't getting left behind here for sure. And I think that's a priority of a lot of people in that organization.
Which is great to hear.
Hello, dog.
Do you think, hi, friend.
Kenji agrees.
Yeah, he's a huge Mystics fan. He heard the name Sonia Citron and he came running. But it is
he needs a jersey.
Yes, he does. But he has to be added to the wait list,
right.
apparently.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a hot commodity.
For his Iriafen jersey.
It is refreshing to hear that that's a priority of the organization, because I do think that that is a concern, frankly, of mine and maybe of a lot of WNBA fans of, okay, well, if you are under the same ownership group, then maybe the W team in that ownership group, along with the NBA, comes second fiddle. There's not as much space in the team store for WNBA merchandise. So it is refreshing to hear that that is, the Washington Mystics ownership group's priority, and at least something that's the forefront of their minds, is to make sure that, okay, everybody eats. Everybody has accessibility and promotion for their respective games. But I do want to go back to one thing that you said about they're calling this a rebuild. Of course, they went young with Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron. They have 3 first-round picks, including its own lottery pick. They have the number 9 pick from Seattle and the number 11 pick as well. So what is this a rebuild?
It's so funny. Yes, that's what the Mystics would say, that they want to focus on player development and they want to improve through the draft and all that thing, which is something that the Wizards are also doing. I don't necessarily understand what that means in the WNBA, where it does feel like you can get a good couple draft picks and be aggressive in free agency. And kind of, it's not like the NBA where you need 5 years, 6 years to turn things around. Like, it can happen pretty quickly in the W, especially with the crazy free agency that's coming up, where everyone's going to be like, go out and get one of those free agents. Just pay them. You'll be fine. You don't need to build through the draft this time. So I'm not... I take issue, I guess, with kind of the quotes and press conference things that I've heard come out of that, just because of the landscape kind of right now and over the next 2 years. But they are definitely saying, okay, we want to give Kiki and Sonia chances to kind of spread their wings, to take leadership, to really take ownership of the team. That's why they traded Brittany Sykes last year at the deadline. You don't trade someone like that away if you're not trying to maybe put yourself in good position for a high draft pick, something like that. But there's so many things they could do. They're kind of cornerstone of their roster right now. Shakira Austin is just 25. She's going to be a restricted free agent, but she just had her first kind of solidly healthy season in a few years and really showed the Mystics what she can be. So they've got some building blocks. They've got some young players, and they're just like so rich when it comes to the draft, just an embarrassment of riches. So I feel like they can do whatever they want.
Do we like the embarrassment of riches that some of these teams have in the draft? Because it is interesting how, like, season after season, the same teams are just stockpiling draft picks. I like the riches if they use the riches. Like, if you're using the riches and then I get to go watch games and also feel rich in my fandom. I do like that. I think something that they also have to consider is their point guard, Georgia Amore, one of my favorite college players to watch, tore her ACL in training camp last year. So kind of depending on the timing of her injury, like, is she going to be ready to go when the season starts this year? They've got some options and some decisions to make. But, like, yeah, use the riches. You can't take it with you when you go. Just use them.
Yeah, right. Just use
that's what I tell myself, at least. When I'm shocked.
It's a good call. It's a good call.
Exactly. Yeah. What good is it just sitting in my bank account? It's just sitting in my closet.
That's right.
And I do think that team building and how you can build a team, it may be simple to say that you're a one cornerstone player away from being competitive. Well, tell that to the Dallas Wings. Tell that to the Chicago Sky, who are a very far cry from competing for anything meaningful. But I look at the Indiana Fever. It took back-to-back first overall picks and pushing all of their chips into the middle in free agency to compete what we all thought and ended up being a legitimate championship contender even when they were riddled with injuries. So what do you think the team building philosophy is? Obviously, they have a treasure trove of picks. They have 2 young stars that they want to continue to build around. What do you expect to see from the Mystics this offseason in what they're calling a rebuild, but might not have to last as long maybe as initially anticipated?
I don't know what they are going to do in the draft. They won't tell me that.
What
but
you do?
What I want to see, I want to see Sonia Citron get some help on the wing. Like, I don't know if Azzi Fudd is going to last as long as some of the highest picks the Mystics have, but how great it would be to get a sharpshooter who can really knock down some threes on the perimeter or even just kind of create action on the outside to really help Sonia Citron in that regard. I would love to see just kind of a little bit more offensive firepower that could really carry them into the playoffs down the line. I'm so basic. I'm like, yes, shoot, make the baskets, go. Offense, yay.
Offense is fun.
Yeah.
Offense is fun. I mean, look at the popularity of the W at this point. It's not because Caitlin Clark just, makes
Plays
these
great
super
defense.
easy shots.
Yeah.
It's because she plays great defense. It's like we all fall in love with the half-court shots.
Yeah.
Look, we're all very easy to please.
There
Just
you go.
high offense, score a lot of points, and make crazy baskets. Like, we're simple creatures. Is Azzi Fudd the best player in this upcoming draft?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I also love watching Lauren Betts play, and she maybe has a little bit, is ready for kind of the physicality of the WNBA, because I do tend to think that's kind of what making that leap from college to the W entails most. You got to be ready to get beat up. Like, that's what we saw this season. But man, watching that game last night that Azzi Fudd played in, I can't think of anyone who's going to be kind of more championship ready than she is, honestly.
Definitely fundamentally wise, like her shot is so pretty, and it's really hard to think of anyone else who can match her in that. Just very quick, very solid every single time. I know we're not talking college, but like that game last night, her dad is always saying if he sees her aggressive on her 3-pointer early, like it's going to be a good night. We saw it last night.
Yeah, and she's such a good decision maker too. She's really, really skilled at reading the floor.
Yeah, she's just an absolute blast to watch. And you pair her with Sarah Strong now at UConn. It's almost like, I don't want to say no Paige, no problem, because I know the Paige Brigade would come for me. And that's not true. But at times it looks like, hey, Sarah Strong and Azzi are like, we got it. No worries. Paige, you go ahead. You go do your thing. We'll hold down the fort here. If we want to transition to the college game, looking at the Mystics and how they want to continue to build, they're not only the team that are, they're not the only team that's looking to rebuild or that has a treasure trove of picks to move themselves into the championship conversation. What are some other college players that you are looking at right now to potentially be a top 5 pick in this upcoming WNBA draft?
I want to see what Olivia Miles can do after having to wait a whole another year. I'm like, Olivia, you're holding out on me. No, I'm really excited about Olivia Miles just because I think it's going to be such an interesting fit for her to see. She really is someone who I feel like you could kind of slot in anywhere. So I'm excited to see how her college season goes just in terms of taking her out of her comfort zone a little bit. Are you going to be able to produce at the same level? Are you going to have the same kind of chemistry? And I think that'll tell us a lot about how she does in the WNBA. But like, after just getting so excited for her last year, I'm like, okay, she's just go this year, girl. Come on, just show me what you can do. But she's, I think, definitely my number one. Yeah. I'm excited about a lot of the young players too. That's why I had to be like, oh, right. Yes. The seniors, when all these freshmen and sophomores are so good too.
Just quickly on Olivia Miles, it is an interesting aspect of the transfer portal, kind of exactly what you said. Like, transferring shows you if you can assimilate with a new team quickly and build quick chemistry, which is interesting, especially when you get to the W and you have a year like this year where everyone's a free agent and you may have never played with the same 5 ever previous to this.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it like that. Yeah, I've just been thinking like the messy version where I'm like, okay, we're going to find out who the problem, like, was the problem the program, was the problem
That's
you?
fair.
Like, no, but that's a very good point with this year coming up in free agency. Yeah.
Both things incredibly
you got to think of both.
Oh, we had massive names in the transfer portal this past season. Tanaya Latson transferred from Florida State to South Carolina. Mylasia Full-Wiley from South Carolina to LSU. Guys, I think that's a great point of how do these players deal with overcoming changes and coaching changes. I think we saw Haley Van Lith go through that same process.
Mm-hmm.
Initially transferring to LSU, struggling at LSU, then transferring to TCU. And it was like a renaissance for her career. So I think it is fascinating to see kind of how they can readjust in new environments. And while we're on the topic of, college stars and names we're going to keep an eye on, I feel like we've all been robbed of the fact that I'm so sad that we don't get to see Juju Watkins this season.
Yeah.
She's out for the season, of course, with an ACL tear that she suffered last season. Juju was coming into this year as the face of women's college basketball. She's in the Nike ads, the Gatorade ads. She is everywhere. Who will be the new face of women's college basketball this season in Juju's absence?
I love that question because I've really been keeping an eye out on Instagram, honestly, seeing who's doing the photo shoots, who's doing the big interviews. Azzi Fudd has been all over my timeline. I don't know about you guys. I think she's a good option. I think Lauren Betts is a good option at UCLA. UCLA has such a high stakes year. I do feel like they have to really get things done this year after being kind of not quite ready to meet the moment. Last year in championship weekend, that feels like me being on the East Coast in DC, I'm I don't get to see them play that because they're either late at night or they're playing. I'm just I don't know who's on your schedule. So that's my bias. But I do think it's going to be Azzi. I think Sarah Strong is so funny to me as kind of a complimentary piece to her just because she is so quiet and seeing her on the press conference dais is a pure comedy show when you ask her a question and she just looks at someone like this. And I'm no, I asked you the question. And yeah, there are a lot of other. Hannah Hidalgo is an option. I think you have a lot of really good personalities in the SEC. I'm thinking of Texas just because I've got family who went to UT. So I'm always Madison Booker. Yes, Rory Harmon. It's your time. So I think it will be hard to dethrone Azzi, but I think there are so many good characters kind of sprinkled across the country.
A lot of personalities for coaches in the SEC as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, Dawn Staley, Kim Mulkey, are they always the face? Sure, yeah.
Picks for national champion on November 5th. Are we willing to go there? Who is going to be UConn, you guys?
That's a good question.
Who is going to be in this team? That's what I'm so reticent to just be yeah, they're going to repeat. But you watch them play in that game against, what was it, number 20 Louisville, and just how they came out of the gate. And I was oh, I can relax in the second quarter now. I can't think of anyone who can, with Sarah Strong rebounding like she is, they're experienced. They're a different team. They seem so confident. To your point of Paige, who we saw her, I think she was interviewed on the sidelines there because it's her off season. Why would she not be around the team? Whatever. And I was just you Paige, come on, let them cook. Go away. I don't want the Paige stands in my DMs either. But no, I really can't think of anyone right now who can kind of, maybe if South Carolina gets hot, if Latson really adds to that structure. I'm so fascinated to see that. LSU with Flau'jae in there, that's who I forgot to say, candidate for face of women's basketball. She definitely has the personality for it. But I don't know, guys. I think it's going to be UConn again.
It's very hard to think of a team right now that could defeat them.
It really does. And the SEC is stacked. The ACC is stacked. I just look at some of those conferences with teams that probably could contend against UConn that are going to be so banged up after the grind of their conference schedule. So
that's a great point.
It is UConn until somebody proves me differently. But I do want to transition into the WNBA because we are currently in negotiations of a new CBA. Of course, we learned the day before Halloween that they agreed to a 30-day extension. So now we're looking at November 30th as the expiration date, essentially, for the WNBA CBA. You do wonderful work covering the NBA and the WNBA. A lot of WCBA conversation has been comparable to NBA CBA conversation about percentage of revenues, percentage of the salary cap for a supermax. How do you compare these two? Maybe the most recent NBA CBA conversations versus the conversations that are ongoing in the WNBA now?
Yeah, it's just that the WNBA wants to kind of be more like how the NBA CBA and kind of all of the major domestic North American sports CBAs are structured, where it's about how you're determining salaries. And we want to be tied to a percentage of the league's revenue growth rather than just have these fixed numbers. Like, we know that the league's argument is, okay, but we're worried about sustainability and long-term growth and all of that stuff. And I don't necessarily quite understand how tying that to revenue growth puts, like, I would have, not saying that it's not a good argument, but I'm like, okay, well, if it doesn't grow, then their salaries don't grow. And isn't that how the long-term sustainability comes around? So I need someone much smarter than me to explain that to me. But it's just that they're trying to be more kind of on the standard end of what all professional athletes get, which makes a lot of sense. Something that the WNBA has that the NBA didn't necessarily need to worry about is the timeline. Like November 30th, I remember when I covered the last CBA, which was kind of right after Kathy Engelbert took over as commissioner, they extend these things all the time. Like, that's not a problem. I think the last one was signed in like January or February or something like that. But this year they have to hold an expansion draft for 2 teams. And then they have to enter this period of like insane free agency that we keep referencing, where almost everybody who's not on a rookie contract is going to be eligible to move wherever they want. So November 30th to me is an extension, but it's also kind of like, okay, we don't have the luxury of time that this league did in the past. So I'm really interested to see, like, I think it's good, obviously, because it means negotiations are still ongoing and that both sides want to come to the table and kind of work something out. But you don't have until February. Or if you do, that's going to be a really, really busy February, March, April. Yeah, that's just like an insane timeline. So I'm so interested to see kind of what happens next, because I know there will be a next step, whether that's another next extension or something much more dramatic.
It very much feels like the end of the year, like 2025 is like hard deadline. Yeah. This is really the last time that we can get this done so that the rest of our off season can progress in, as you said, like not in insane way that it would if they do have to go into February.
Yeah, they have so much to do. I'm like, this is barely an off season. Come on, let's get going.
And so many parallels are being made between the WNBA and the NBA. And I think that's obvious because they are same sport, essentially the same league with the same ownership. Adam Silver has a huge say over what happens in the WNBA. But I also don't think it's a perfectly fair comparison because there are massive gaps in revenue. I mean, the NBA television package is significantly more than the WNBA television package. What do you think is a fair comparison? Maybe a league or maybe a historical context that you think would be valuable when we're trying to project where the WNBA and the WNBPA could settle?
That's a really good question because I've been thinking of it that way too. And the thing that's tricky about the WNBA is I think very purposefully they have had their biggest success when they don't try to be like the other leagues. Like, I think it was as soon as when we kind of saw them go into the bubble and really embrace the social-minded aspect of the league. Like, the question, even when I started covering the WNBA, was always like, okay, well, do you want to be a sports league or do you want to be a social activism group? And they finally figured out a way to be both. And I think kind of by leaning into that, this sounds so like crunchy, but by leaning into their authenticity is when they really started to find success. So I do think it's a tough comparison because I think they want to earn fairly and get paid in the way that male athletes get paid and their counterpoints get paid, but they also like have other player experience things to worry about, and that you've got things like you've got mothers in the league and you've got, the charter issues still to bang out because, like you said, there is such a gap in revenue between something like an NBA and a WNBA. So I'm sure there is like a labor fight comparison that I am not super read up on. And I know the NWSL just kind of went through something similar. Maybe that's something that you can compare from the labor fight. But in terms of like what the WNBA is trying to create here, as a whole total league, both in the CBA and both what they want to be, I don't know that there's a comparison. And it's interesting to kind of think about from that point of view, at least for me, of like, they really do want to, I'm annoying myself, but they want to have it all. Like they're trying to have it all here. So it's interesting for me to kind of try to wrap my brain around that. And maybe it's why they're taking so long. They opted out more than a year ago now. I don't know what was taking so long, but maybe it's that there is no real firm precedent here. At least that's part of it.
Yeah, I don't think there is a firm precedent because, as you said, like, you can look at what the NBA is doing and take some things from them if it makes sense, but it doesn't always make sense. And I've been looking into kind of a comparison between MLS and the WNBA because their media rights have kind of been on the same track. Kathy Engelbert has spoken about the MLS before, but to your point, like, you can't just take that, right? They have allocation, they have other things, Lionel Messi making all of that money. You can't just take from the NWSL because soccer is just a different sport. Like, it's like the WNBA has to sit there and kind of piece together all of these things to make a transformational CBA and set themselves up for the future.
And it's such an interesting point too, because you just think about the sheer number of games and how limited of a season it really is. Like, that's got to be really, really tricky to figure out. And I know it all ties directly into revenue, but it's like NBA players, all we hear is complaining about, oh my God, 82 games is too long, which it is too long. But they're playing that many games because that's how much money they agreed to make. Like, everyone's kind of cashing in on there too. So just being such a condensed part of the year is such an interesting thing to think about. I should have been a lawyer, I guess. I don't know.
It is a good call out, the games, because I think that's the thing I think about when understandably players have more concerns about the games than just this is the number of games we're playing. But the number of games that they were playing was agreed to in the last CBA. This was not a decision that was made lightly. It was decided really 8 years ago or whatever it was. So if you're talking about games in the next CBA, like, what does that look like? Is it no longer going to say we play X between X games and X games? Is it going to be we only have this many back-to-backs? We only have this much turnaround? Like, are they going to get into the nitty-gritties of all of this stuff once they figure out a rev share system that they like?
And is kind of, you're adding games on every year, and we're going to see expansion kind of in that direction too, not just adding franchises, but adding to the length of the season. But that's still hard capped because this league is owned by the NBA and does not want direct competition with the NBA season. That's something I kind of always think about, just like percolating in the back of my mind. I'm like, should this league break away one day, maybe, eventually? Don't ask me how that would work money-wise, because I do not know, and I'm not sure that it would. But there are so many things that are just in conflict, and you see kind of the tension that's created when Adam Silver says something like share is not the right word when talking about revenue sharing. Like, you just want to be like, start dreaming of what happens if the W goes independent.
Yeah, there's so many interesting things about that. But just quickly, the fascinating aspect of, if you think about like how many fans are going to Fever games now and how many are interested in the Pacers. And you're totally right. Like, a fascinating idea that you don't want those to overlap too much because it's a massive headache to figure out. So if you keep them separate in your schedule, like, that probably looks good to the NBA.
Definitely. Yeah. The WNBA plays during the NFL season. Like, if that league is not worried about going up against the NFL, like, okay, so what's the reason that you're not playing during the NBA season? And, we know the answer, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fair to say. And I also need, television networks to maybe stop scheduling WNBA playoff games.
Since Caroline keeps knocking down this door.
I'm so with you. I'm so with you on that. Yeah.
I mean, if I walk into a sports bar on an NFL Sunday and I ask them to change one of their 4,000 TVs to a WNBA playoff game, everybody looks at me like
Pitchforks.
I'm crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't think it's too much to ask for hey, at least put this product that you pay for, put it in a standalone window. Let it continue to grow. Don't put it behind
Caroline,
the NFL.
Go.
I'm
so with you on this.
We have?
Right.
Maybe I should have been a lawyer, and this would have been my platform.
How great, you guys. We've all decided to go to law school after this podcast.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Amazing. I will see you in our LSAT prep
Right.
courses.
Yeah. Oh, my God. It's like Legally Blonde, right? We can do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
that's
it's
a good
hard.
call out.
Yeah.
Ava Wallace, you are wonderful. You do such a fantastic job of covering all things Washington, D.C. sports for the Washington Post. Where can the people find some more of your work?
You can follow me. My Instagram is Ava R. Wallace. I'm doing video stuff. We're doing podcasting stuff. We kind of cover it all over there. And we're also on Instagram at Post Sports, and that kind of will get you to all of our wonderful work. But thank you guys so much for having me today.
Thanks for joining us.
Best. Thanks so much. Shout out to Ava Wallace. She's wonderful. She's a pro. Love to have her on the show and hope to have her on the show much, much more. So stay tuned for more of Ava here on the show. And stay tuned for some upcoming games that we have on the schedule in women's college basketball. On Friday, we have Richmond at Texas. That's an 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Richmond is my team of destiny this year. Maggie Dugan, she leads the team in rebounds. She led the team last year in points, led the team last year in assists. Richmond is the lone mid-major in the preseason top 25. I'm riding or dying with the Spiders, Cass.
I think this one will be a fun one to watch. You want to see mid-majors in action so that you can, like you said, know Maggie Dugan and know the players and know who they are. I was also impressed with Belmont this week. They hung in there with Oklahoma. So this should be a fun one. This is the one I have my eye on.
Yeah, no doubt. And then not the next day, on Sunday, we'll have number 18 USC on the road at NC State. NC State with an absolute grind of a non-conference schedule. No Juju Watkins, of course, we know that at USC, but keep an eye on Jazzy Davidson, true freshman, putting up 14 points in her USC debut. And then later that evening, we'll have Florida State at UConn. Florida State, unranked, lost their leading scorer in Tanai Latson to the transfer portal. She's now at South Carolina. Florida State is still wanting to have that very quick, high-scoring, shoot the ball, kind of Golden State Warriors approach, which is always a blast to watch. It will be a great test for this UConn defense. And then on Monday evening, late one, 10:30 Eastern time tip-off, we've got number 6 Oklahoma at number 3 UCLA. So lots of ranked on ranked matchups coming at you. But Cass, I think overall, my number one thing for right now that you are more than welcome to hold me to as we go through the non-con, I am going to hold myself from having any overly bold, overly strong prediction and projections on the women's college basketball season until we get to conference play. I'm going to allow all of these teams who have freshmen and transfer portal players that are going through transitional periods from now until the conference schedule starts. I'm going to allow them time to figure out who the heck they are. Because once we get into conference schedule time, it's grind time. It is, you put the pedal to the metal. We are in the nitty gritty of the season. But for now, I reserve any strong conclusions or predictions or projections.
Okay. I will hold you to it. I'm going to keep my eye out. I'm going to have a little sticky note on my computer and remind you of it.
Please do. Text me every single morning. Caroline.
You don't think I will, but I will. Please send me a picture of your dog. I'll send you a picture of my dog. Also, hold you accountable.
Perfect. Okay, I love that. That's way better than all caps. Caroline, don't do anything stupid today. I'd like just a picture of Kenji. That's the best way to start the day. Send your pictures of your dogs and also any and all questions that you might have for the podcast to hoops360@yahoosports.com, HOOPS360@yahoosports.com. We will get to as many questions, comments, concerns, and tidbits as we possibly can on the podcast. So make sure to send those in, hoops360@yahoosports.com.